Jennifer Gledhill. You're watching Uncovering Crime Tales, where every hidden truth is brought to light. Tonight, we uncover the chilling story of Jennifer Gledhill, a wife, a mother, and a woman whose darkest choices turned love into betrayal and family into tragedy. In the quiet streets of Cottonwood Heights, Utah, the Johnson Gledhill home looked like any other suburban house. Behind the walls of that home, however, a story of betrayal, fear, and obsession was quietly building until it exploded into one of the most shocking murder cases Utah had seen in years. Jennifer Gledhill was 42 years old, a mother of 3 children still in grade school, each of them growing up in the middle of a home that looked safe from the outside but was collapsing from within. Her husband, Matthew Johnson, was 9 years older, a disciplined former Marine who had served honorably in the National Guard. Friends described Matthew as steady, reliable, the kind of man who kept his problems close to his chest. Yet those closest to him noticed changes in 2024, the year his marriage fell apart in front of everyone's eyes. Jennifer had filed for divorce that July. Divorce is difficult under any circumstance, but this one was filled with accusations, protective order requests, and deep distrust. Jennifer went to court claiming Matthew was abusive, that she feared for her safety and her children's safety. Judges examined her claims and ruled that she had not demonstrated abuse, labeling her instead as the aggressor. The ruling left Jennifer furious, and the relationship spiraled into darker confrontations. Matthew, feeling cornered, began spending nights away from the house. He told colleagues at the National Guard that he didn't feel safe in his own home. It was a statement no one fully understood until much later. During this time, Jennifer's life was unraveling in different directions. She had become romantically involved with another man, a lover she kept secret from most of her friends and family. That man would become central to the investigation, because he would later record the words that Jennifer herself used to describe what she had done. To him, she confessed details so chilling they seemed ripped from a crime drama. To him, she compared herself to a storybook villain who decided with a flick of her hand who lived and who died. At the time, though, he likely couldn't imagine just how much his recordings would matter. September was the month when everything changed. Around September 20th, Matthew confronted Jennifer about the affair he believed she was having. Their fights were no longer private. Neighbors could hear the tension, slamming doors, raised voices. Within days, Jennifer sent a desperate text to her father. She wrote, "I need $13K by Friday." Her father, perhaps confused but still willing to help, sent her $1,000 on Venmo. He couldn't have known that investigators would later pull that very text message from Jennifer's phone and wonder what the money was really for. The urgency, the sum, and the timing would all look suspicious later, but at the time it was just one more piece of private family business. 2 days later, on the night of September 21st, Jennifer appeared at her lover's house, visibly rattled. What she told him that night changed the course of the investigation. She claimed she had taken Matthew's own 9mm handgun while he was asleep in their marital bed, shot him, and ended his life. She described wrapping his body, moving it into a rooftop cargo container, loading it into her minivan, and driving north to bury him in a shallow grave. Her voice, recorded later by her lover, carried a strange detachment. At one point, when he pressed her, she replied coldly, "Wow, if you think I could even hurt a fly, he's not a person anymore." He wasn't mad. The lover, disturbed by her calm tone and terrified by the details, began secretly recording her. In another conversation, she compared herself to the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland, saying with chilling confidence, "Off with their heads." Matthew's sudden absence quickly raised alarms. On September 25th, the Utah National Guard noticed he had failed to report for duty and marked him as absent without leave. Jennifer, for her part, didn't call the police until September 28th, when she reported him missing. To officers, she claimed Matthew had stormed out after an argument and never returned. She sounded, on the surface, like a worried wife. But when investigators entered the Johnson home, the scene they found made them deeply suspicious. There were patches on the bedroom floor and wall that had been scrubbed with bleach. There were reddish stains that looked like remnants of blood near the bed frame. Most telling of all, there was a brand new mattress in the master bedroom. Neighbors later said they had seen the old mattress carried out in the middle of the night. To detectives, it looked like someone had worked hard to erase something they didn't want discovered. Behind the scenes, Jennifer's secret lover had already gone to the police. He gave them the recordings of her voice describing the killing. He handed over the screenshots of her messages. He became the key witness, though his name remained shielded for his safety. The evidence he provided was damning. Jennifer was arrested on October 2nd, charged with first-degree murder, obstruction of justice, desecration of a body, and tampering with a witness. Her bail was denied, and her 3 children were taken into state custody. In jail, Jennifer maintained her innocence, pleading not guilty, but investigators continued to uncover layers of evidence that connected her to the crime. The most shocking twist came when her own parents, Thomas and Rosalie Gledhill, were implicated. Neighbors told police they had seen the elder Gledhills at their daughter's house late at night, helping clean and carrying large items out. Phone data and surveillance suggested Jennifer's phone had traveled north around the time she confessed to her lover that she had buried Matthew. Investigators believed her parents helped her cover up what had happened, possibly even helping to dispose of evidence like the mattress. In October, they too were arrested and charged with obstruction of justice. The image of a family once respected in their community began to collapse under the weight of the investigation. For prosecutors, the case looked strong even without a body. Blood evidence, the missing mattress, the suspicious bleach, the lover's testimony, the secret recordings, and the phone data all painted a clear story. Still, the defense pushed back, calling the evidence circumstantial and pointing out that Matthew's body had not been recovered. Without a body, they argued, there could be no absolute proof of murder. In pretrial hearings, Jennifer's attorneys begged the court to allow her contact with her children, insisting she was a loving mother caught in a misunderstanding. The judge refused. Prosecutors described her as manipulative, dangerous, and a risk to everyone who crossed her. The children remained in state custody, shielded from contact with their mother. The case captivated the media. Newspapers and television networks ran story after story about the glamorous mother accused of killing her husband. Reporters noted how wealthy she appeared, how she lived in a well-kept suburban neighborhood, how her children had been enrolled in private schools. The image of a suburban family torn apart by betrayal and murder fascinated the public, and Jennifer's every court appearance was documented in headlines. When she walked into court in February 2025, dressed in a beige prison jumpsuit, shackled at her wrists, she drew stares from the press gallery. Cameras zoomed in on her calm, almost defiant expression. As the months passed, the prosecutors prepared their case for trial. A jury was scheduled to hear it in December of 2025. With nearly 2 weeks blocked off for testimony, they intended to present the recordings of Jennifer's confession, the text to her father demanding $13,000, the neighbors' accounts of suspicious late-night cleaning, and the forensic reports showing bleach and blood in the bedroom. They planned to call Matthew's colleagues to testify about his fears for his safety. They intended to argue that Jennifer, desperate to protect her affair and gain control in her divorce, killed Matthew in cold blood and relied on her parents to help cover up the crime. The defense, for its part, prepared to attack the credibility of the lover who had gone to police, painting him as jealous or manipulative. They also planned to argue that Matthew might still be alive somewhere, that the state could not prove he was dead without a body. The weeks leading into trial were filled with hearings, filings, and growing media tension. Jennifer herself sat in a jail cell, denied bail, her life shrinking to the cold walls and scheduled visits with her attorneys. She complained that she could not see her children. She insisted she was not a killer, but the walls of evidence were tightening around her. When Jennifer was placed in jail, the walls around her seemed to close in tighter each day. Through her lawyer, she requested multiple times to see her children, but the judge denied her again and again. The prosecution argued that not only was she accused of killing their father, but she posed a potential danger to the children themselves. For Jennifer, this was unbearable. Once, she had been seen as a devoted mother, a woman trying to hold a picture-perfect life together. Now, in the eyes of the public, she was a cold-blooded woman who had murdered her husband in his sleep. The media made her into a spectacle, labeling her the society mom or the suburban killer. Every court appearance was broadcast. Her faint smile, or stern expressions became headlines in local and national papers. Investigators dug deeper and deeper. They traced her phone data, her location history, her messages. According to their findings, on the morning of September 2020, Jennifer's phone pinged near northern Utah, the same direction she had once spoken of with her lover. Police believed it was during this trip that Matthew's body had been disposed of. Search teams were dispatched multiple times. Drones flew over vast desert landscapes. Cadaver dogs sniffed through stretches of dirt, but the earth refused to reveal the secret it held. The lack of a body gave the defense a lifeline. Jennifer's attorneys insisted that without a body, murder couldn't be proven. They painted alternate possibilities. Maybe Matthew had disappeared by choice. Maybe he wanted to escape. Yet, the bloodstains found on the walls and mattress in their home told another story. Forensic experts matched the DNA. It was Matthew's blood, and there was too much of it for him to have simply walked away. Meanwhile, Jennifer's parents were also being charged. Thomas and Rosalie, once seen as respectable, upright citizens, now faced allegations that they had helped their daughter cover up her crime. The prosecution said they moved furniture and the mattress late at night, that they helped clean the house with bleach, and that they intentionally interfered with evidence. It was shocking for the community to see parents dragged into the chaos, accused of destroying their own integrity in a desperate attempt to protect their daughter. When they walked into court, the shame on their faces was visible, the weight of disgrace heavy on their shoulders. As trial loomed closer, the prosecution lined up its witnesses. Among them were Matthew's fellow National Guard members, who testified how he had confessed his fears to them, telling them he didn't feel safe in his own home. Neighbors were also prepared to speak about the strange smells, the late-night movements, and the sudden disappearance of furniture. But the most important witness was Jennifer's lover, who had turned over recordings and messages to the police. His testimony was damning. The recordings revealed Jennifer's own voice, clear and calm, describing what she had done and why. He wasn't Matthew anymore. He was gone. Her voice echoed, chilling everyone who heard it. The defense tried desperately to attack his credibility, portraying him as a jealous man seeking revenge, suggesting that he might have fabricated the context of the recordings. They argued that snippets of conversation could be twisted. They leaned heavily on the missing body as their strongest point without a body. How could they be certain Matthew was dead? Perhaps he was hiding somewhere, alive but unreachable. Jennifer's attorneys painted her as a woman trapped in an unhappy marriage, cornered by lies, driven into a corner by fear and desperation. December 2025 arrived, and the trial began in a packed courthouse. Outside, media swarmed like it was a celebrity trial. To many, it felt like a crime drama unfolding in real life. Inside, the jury sat silent, their faces hard and watchful, as the judge called the court to order. The prosecution opened with sharp words. This case is about greed, about rage, about a woman who murdered her husband to free herself and gain the upper hand in a divorce. She didn't just kill him, she carefully planned to erase him. Witnesses stepped forward one by one. Matthew's colleagues spoke of his dread, his repeated warnings that he feared for his life. Neighbors recounted the smell of bleach, the sight of furniture hauled into the night. Forensic scientists displayed photographs of the blood patterns, explaining how the spatter indicated violence. And finally, the lover took the stand. He told the jury about their secret affair, about Jennifer's confessions. The recordings were played, filling the room with her unmistakable voice. For a long moment, silence hung heavy as jurors listened. Some looked visibly shaken. The defense cross-examined, hammering away at his credibility, questioning his motives. But the combination of phone records, texts, and voice recordings held firm. Jennifer sat quietly through it all, her face calm, almost too calm. At times she lowered her head. At times she looked at the jurors directly. Her stillness became unsettling. No tears, no outbursts, no visible regret. The trial painted a grim picture of a family's downfall. A husband gone, his body still missing. 3 children left adrift, placed under state care. Parents accused of betraying the law to protect their daughter. And a community stunned by the destruction of a household that once appeared normal. In closing arguments, the prosecution struck hard. They described Jennifer as manipulative, someone who plotted not only to kill, but to cover every trace. They argued she wanted freedom to live her double life, to control the divorce, to escape accountability. This was no accident, no heat of the moment fight, the prosecutor told the jury. This was cold, deliberate murder. The defense gave their final plea. There is no body. There is no murder weapon. You cannot convict on suspicion. You must have certainty. They urged the jury to give Jennifer the benefit of doubt, to see her as a mother wrongfully accused. The jury deliberated for hours, the world outside waiting with breath held. When they finally returned, the courtroom froze in anticipation. The foreperson rose, and the verdict was read: guilty of first-degree murder, guilty of obstruction of justice, guilty of desecration of a body. Jennifer Gledhill stood motionless. There was no gasp, no cry, just a blank acceptance. Her parents, too, were found guilty of obstruction. The room erupted afterward, with the flurry of cameras, reporters shouting questions, the public gasping at the outcome. For Jennifer, there was nothing left but years behind steel bars. For her children, there was no father, no mother, only the system to raise them now. For Matthew's friends, the verdict brought a mix of relief and sorrow. Closure without a body, justice without peace. In the end, the case etched itself into Utah's history. It was more than just a murder trial. It was a cautionary tale of how love can curdle into hatred, how a home can turn into a crime scene, how self-interest and deceit can unravel an entire family. The missing body became a haunting reminder that some truths remain buried, but the weight of evidence was enough to convict. Jennifer's name will forever be linked to the story of betrayal and violence, a woman who thought she could outwit everyone, only to be undone by her own words. It left behind not just legal consequences, but broken lives, unanswered questions, and a chilling lesson. When darkness takes root in the heart, it can consume everything: love, trust, family, until nothing is left but ruins.